Good evening and adab to all our viewers. We welcome you to the 12th edition of the Mahindra Sanat Kada Lucknow Festival. This is a very special evening for us because we have with us Mr. Anand Mahindra, Chairman of the Mahindra Group of Industries. As we all know, the Mahindra Sanat Kada Lucknow Festival is a theme-based festival and the theme changes every year. The theme is taken from the social and cultural life of Lucknow and the Awadh region. Our festival each year is housed in the Safed Baradari. This is part of Wajid Ali Shah's Kaisar Bagh complex and perhaps the only structure which survives today in almost the original shape in which it was built, standing here for the last 180 years. Our theme for this year is the Baradaris of Lucknow, and this Safed Baradari, the main hall of the Baradari and its side wings house the weaves and the crafts that are on display every year. And the beauty of this structure, which has 12 arches, that is from where we derive the name Baradari. The beauty of this structure is at one, and it reflects the beauty of the craft and weaves products that are on display and sale every year. Now we will see a short film on the theme, and it is called Naksho Nigare Baradari.
As the Mahindra Sanat Kada Lucknow Festival, the MSLF, enters its 12th edition, we bring to you an online crafts bazaar designed around the theme of Baradaris of Lucknow. These pavilions, with 12 doorways as their central architectural element, signify the many ways in which the festival has looked at Lucknow and Awadh and celebrated aspects of community life and culture in our region. Just as Baradaris were designed to serve as open and airy spaces where religious gatherings, literary mehfils, and dance performances would be organized, MSLF has served as a community program with enthusiastic and joyous participation of citizens of the city from all walks of life. The construction of the Kaisar Bagh Palace complex started in 1848 and finished in 1852. The palace complex, known for its architectural beauty, was a series of courtyards with large independent structures integrated within the courtyard or along the walled enclosures to form an integral whole. The Jilau Khana, or central courtyard, is the only part of the complex that remains identifiable today, and the Safed Baradari still occupies its position in the center of this courtyard. The Safed Baradari, where MSLF is held each year, does not need a tag. The Baradari refers to the majestic structure built in Kaisar Bagh by the last king of Awadh, Wajid Ali Shah. Built on an elevation of about 6 feet, it is surrounded by extensive gardens. The interiors are spacious and there are latticed balconies overlooking the main hall. The enclosed wings on either side run parallel to the main hall, and there are open spaces all around the building which join a large chabutra in the front. There are octagonal pavilions at the 4 corners of the structure and eaves that run about the whole building. There are 12 cusped arches, 3 on each side, like a classic Baradari. The MSLF's many enchantments over the last 12 years have been mirrored through the different elements of the Kaisar Bagh Baradari. from its grand central hall to the Chabutra, from its side wings to the Tehkhana, and from its splendid lattices to the stained glass arched doorways. It is the beauty of the monument that enhances the different moods of the festival. From Birju Maharaj performing in the main hall to the sound of beating rain, to Shruti Sarolikar Katkar and Shubha Mudgal's mesmerizing Seher concerts, and the Bazi that saw its popular revival on the Chabutra. The function of the Baradari has changed over the years. It was built originally as an Imambada, the Qasrul Azha, to mourn the martyrdom of Hussain and his followers at Karbala. After the annexation of Awadh in 1856, the Baradari was used by the British to hold court for petitions and claims. Later, around 1923, it was handed over to the Talukadars of Awadh and continues to be in their possession today. The Baradari was the venue for the All India Music Conference in 1924 and 25, with a resolution for setting up a large college of music. The Marist College of Music, now the Bhatkande University, was adopted. A well-known event is during the visit of the Simon Commission to Lucknow in 1928, when the Talukadars held a tea party for the commission members at the Baradari. Due to heavy police deployment, freedom fighters protesting against the commission deployed the unique strategy of flying black kites with Simon Go Back painted on them, and then cutting the string such that the kites descended on the Baradari. The Baradari is now used as a space for social functions, poetic symposia, exhibitions, and as a popular location for film shootings. Over the years, the Baradari has undergone several structural changes. The four prominent domes over each chhatri were broken down between 1858 and 1867, possibly after one of them was destroyed in the fighting and mayhem of 1857. A second story was also added above the main hall. Around the turn of the 20th century, the rectangular chabutra with a floor below, called the Tehkhana, was constructed to replace the garden in front of the Baradari, and rear and side elevations were added to the structure. Majestic Baradaris were built in medieval India from Punjab and Rajasthan to the Deccan. Lucknow's Baradaris were largely constructed in the late 18th and 19th centuries and were part of palace complexes, homes, imambadas, samadhis, community spaces in mohallas, or as airy resting places on the banks of the river Gomti. As old structures have fallen to the vagaries of time, only a few of these beautiful buildings remain, with some in dire need of preservation. Apart from the Kaisar Bagh Baradari, that is the Safed Baradari, the ones you will see during the online bazaar, and Naqsh-o-Nigare Baradari, which is our virtual tour of Baradaris, are the Lal Baradari, now housing the State Lalit Kala Academy, the Banarsi Bagh Baradari, part of the Nawab Wajid Ali Shah Zoological Park, the Lal Baradari in Lucknow University, the Picture Gallery, the Chandiwali Baradari, now housing the family court, the small marble Baradari in Kaisar Bagh Gardens, Ram Asre ki Baradari at Puriya Ghat, the Baradari planned Chhatri at Begum Hazrat Mahal Park, and the three Baradaris as Samadhis at Bagh Baba Hazara in Thakurganj. In the words of Wajid Ali Shah, once Lucknow's beloved Akhtar Piya, हम गरीबों को न इस बज़्म से उठवाए बुत, सोहबते आम में खासाने खुदा होते हैं, हम में और उनमें बढ़ा राब्ता अख्तर इतना, हम पे वो सदक़े हैं, हम उन पे फ़िदा होते हैं. Do not eject us from this assembly, O men of clay. In the company of ordinary people, we become beloveds of God. I came so close and became one of them, Akhtar, that they can sacrifice all for me, and I am besotted with them.
And now we come to Mr. Anand Mahindra, who is chairman of the Mahindra Group of Industries. He supports many cultural festivals all over the country, and he has been supporting our festival for the last 12 years. For this, we are very grateful for his patronage and for his partnering with us. He also has a Lucknow connection. This festival is dedicated to his mother, Indra Mahindra, who spent her growing up years in the city, And Mr. Mahindra, in the course of his conversation, will fondly recount his memories of Lucknow as he heard through his mother's conversation. He will also be talking about the importance of digitization in today's current scenario, the importance of digitization between craft and design, and the craftsperson and the finished craft product. We also have with us today Radhika Bodia. She has been a well-known TV journalist and she's a freelance writer also. Currently, she's teaching media studies at the University of Wisconsin. She has played a very important role in crafting the Mahindra Sanatkada Lucknow Festival as we see it today. Madhvi Kukreja needs no introduction. She is the director of the festival. She established Sanatkada as a craft shop in Lucknow, which later on took shape as the Mahindra Sanatkada Lucknow Festival. And we are now in the 12th edition of this festival. Madhvi prefers to be known as women's rights and a cultural activist. Without much delay, let us move on to the conversation that is going to take place between Mr. Mahindra, between Madhvi and Radhika.
Adab, and really welcome finally to the Mahindra Sanatkada Lucknow Festival. The advantages of being online. We have Mr. Anand Mahindra, who needs no introduction, our patron, our partner, and we have with us Radhika, who's also the sort of mentor of the festival, and we both, I guess, began it with her at that time, many years ago, 12 years ago actually, Bara Baras, Bara Dar, Bara Din, this time online. So sir, the first, thank you so much for finally being with us. And the first question that I have for you, and I've always thought about it, is that if you could share some memories of your mother, who the festival is dedicated to, because she and like other friends of hers were really the epitome of Lucknow for us. So we'd love to get to know her a little bit better through you.
You know, my mother died in the wool Lucknowite. She loved the city. She was born in Allahabad actually, then the family moved to Lucknow. And she came from a very modest family. Her father was, I think, an insurance agent. So they never had very much money. There were 7 siblings. Father had to support them all. She went to a Hindi medium school, taught herself English in a sense, and then of course went to the Isabella Thoburn College. So I remember her once telling me rather memorably that they were not a rich family, but her riches came from the experience of living in Lucknow. And she felt the wealth of Lucknow, the cultural wealth of Lucknow, was her true wealth. And I think that's true because it in fact encouraged, it did not discourage her non-conformism. She was a tomboy growing up. I remember her telling me about how she forced her brothers to teach her how to ride a cycle. I don't ever remember her telling me that it was really difficult being a girl growing up in Lucknow. And then, of course, Isabella Thoburn College was a wonderful haven for her where she began to teach history. So I don't recall her ever telling me about feeling oppressed or suppressed as a woman. And I think that's the biggest gift Lucknow gave her, and which is a part of my virtuous memory of Lucknow.
I just also was wondering if you had any memories of the people of Lucknow or Lucknow itself that she talked about. I know you just visited it afterwards, but...
Well, you know, she talked often about her family because, as you can imagine, with 7 siblings, they're all over the place. And a large chunk of the family remained in Lucknow. So she would constantly be in touch with her brothers and her sisters-in-law and her sisters. And she would talk often of them. But I don't know whether you know her story, but she, after being a teacher of history in Isabella Thoburn, she, along with two other ladies, Beena Rai and Asha Mathur, decided to move out of Lucknow, and they very impulsively moved to Bombay to join Bollywood. I don't even know whether it was called Bollywood then. They all had dreams of being in the movie business, because my mother was a thespian. She was always in her school and college plays. I don't recall where she met Beena Rai and Asha Mathur, but obviously they were close friends. And the three of them moved to Bombay. And Beena Rai, of course, became very successful. My mother made one film for Kishore Sahu and called Kali Ghata. And Beena Rai was in that too. And after that, I think she met my father, who sort of told her that I've got to get you out of that industry and come and be with me and so on. So she would talk about them. And then Beena Rai, as you know, married the film star Prem Nath. And her son was in school with me in Cathedral School in Bombay. He's still a good friend. And so we kept in touch with them. And that's how I know of those days of hers from these two people. Asha Mathur, unfortunately, wasn't very successful and then became unwell rather early on in life. But those are the people she talked about, really. And I love the whole romanticism of the idea of these three women in a time when women's liberation didn't really exist, just deciding to do what they wanted to and to move to Bombay to make a life for themselves. Once again, Lucknow was a springboard.
Yeah, I think that's what inspires us. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's quite incredible to see that the festival in her name now has really grown. This year, due to the pandemic, the thrust of the festival has been a massive online crafts bazaar. And as always, it sort of underlines the sheer diversity and richness of our crafts and textile traditions. Do you think that this tradition is something companies like yours can draw upon or find ways to promote? Because promoting the traditional crafts has always been a huge issue of discussion and sort of, debate in the sector.
Radhika, as you well know yourself, this is not a festival sponsored by the Mahindra Group. I sponsor this personally because it's in my mother's name, and you are the person behind it all. You got Vasu to call me, and he called me at a time, it was serendipitous that my mother had recently passed away, and I was looking to create something in her name. As you know, I endowed the Mahindra Humanities Center at Harvard, again in her name. And I was looking for something to do in India, so the timing was perfect. And therefore, it came out of a personal commitment. So we don't struggle to find a nexus between our company and the motives and the benefits from the festival. In fact, it's not about what the festival can do for the Mahindra Group. It should be the other way around. It's what can the Mahindra Group do for the festival. And the reason for that is because our philosophy as a group, our core purpose, as we call it, is about giving back. It is about driving positive change in the lives of the stakeholders and the communities in which we work. So to enable them to rise. And that is what we really should be doing, because the community in Lucknow is who we owe a debt of gratitude to. The UP market is one of our biggest markets for both automobiles and tractors. So we intend to give back to the community in which we serve. How can we do that? Well, as you mentioned, Radhika, this is in fact, I think, going to be one of the silver linings of the pandemic, that it's driven you to go online. But when you look back, you're going to find it has become an opportunity to dramatically expand the visibility of the festival. So if I had to find two things we can do to help, it is about digitalization and it is about disintermediation. which actually comes out of the digitalization. Both those words are mouthfuls, but they're very important words. And I think through our IT skills via Tech Mahindra, we can certainly help hone the digitalization, refine it. But disintermediation I refer to because, as you well know, the crafts is a big part of your festival. And one of the problems of craftsmanship and craftspeople is their ability to reach out to their customers. Digitalization gives them a real shop window to do that. And let me quote you another example, which I heard recently, which is very interesting about the tectonic shifts happening here. You would have heard about a platform called Roposo in India. It's the Indian TikTok. And obviously after TikTok was banned, Roposo's subscribers shot up. They are almost at 100 million or more right now. And I was having a chat with the founder, Naveen Tiwari, a wonderful guy. And he told me this interesting story about how they have examples of farmers growing mangoes. There's a farmer who grows a mango. He comes onto Raposo. He records a video like the TikTok video. He holds up his mango and he says, here are my mangoes. Anyone who wants to buy them. And then he gives a contact detail. And today, the convergence of both connectivity as well as logistics improvement means that he can find many ways in which to reach those mangoes to customers who want them. So it becomes like the old days. And this is the example Naveen gave me. And it's very relevant to your people. He said, wo purane dino mein was jo dukane hua karti thi, you would pass by, the dukandar would shout, idhar aao, yahan dekho, ye dekho, mere paas ye hai. He said, we are going back to that because what you're doing is digitally creating those dukans and you're getting people shouting out and trying to get your attention, which is what we can do with Sanat Kada and the crafts people. And I hope the Mahindra Group, with your permission, can help catalyze that for you and your crafts people.
Absolutely.
That really is fun.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it has turned out to be, I mean, it can really be seen as a silver lining because that being able to take the crafts directly actually addresses a huge issue of promoting the crafts that we've been talking about endlessly in this country. The other concern, and I know this is something you've spoken about in the past, good design is something you felt passionately about. Now, with the crafts, on the one hand, you've got very rich traditional handmade skills, and yet innovation is something that the crafts people are always talking about and the sector is usually concerned about. Do you think there can be a greater synergy between designers and craftspeople so that we can evolve products that have a greater contemporaneity of sorts?
The answer to your question, in fact, lies within the question. You practically, it was almost rhetorical because the answer is an obvious yes, there has to be much greater synergy. But I think both of you remember, and Madhavi, you would remember even more particularly, do you remember Rajiv Sethi's Golden Eye exhibition?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think Radhika may be too young to remember it, but it was the first time when Rajiv Sethi recognized exactly what you said, Radhika, that you have to give a greater modern sensibility to crafts. And he did that in the Golden Eye exhibition, which of course was in collaboration, if I'm not wrong, with the Cooper Hewitt Museum in New York. It became global. And I always thought it was going to be the beginning of something really huge. Do you know, Madhavi, what happened? Why did that movement really not gather pace?
You know, it's that whole, I think the gap between the designers and the craftspersons, which is still we've not been able to bridge. Because, I mean, they're really struggling with, I mean, whether it's simple things like Excel sheets right now, or photography, using even a smartphone, having even a smartphone. I mean, we just did a round of asking them, like, what are the challenges? And it's huge. I mean, for them, even now, it's huge. Their kids are sort of coming. So I think that bridge didn't happen. The gap was too far between the two. So, I mean, they could just follow.
Maybe you're right. I guess it became global, and then suddenly became just a flavor of the month or the year, I suppose. But the imperative still exists. And look, at first, I don't think we should be condescending about craftspeople here and their innate sense of design. Some of the most authentic and viscerally beautiful design comes from village people in Rajasthan. Radhika, you said you're from there.
Absolutely.
I would hate to try and adulterate that. So we have to be very, very careful about believing that craftspeople somehow need a grafting of some design instinct. So we have to respect that, in my view. But having said that, things evolve, and therefore, if there can be a more robust engagement, a continuing dialogue instead of one seminal exhibition, but a continuing dialogue between different design sensibilities, then you will internationalize, you will create many new sensibilities, which obviously will lead to much greater commercial opportunities for these designers. I remember my wife runs a publishing company, and she started out with, it's a high-end premium magazine. She started out with interior design, and then of course Verve magazine. And I remember once asking her, what exactly is luxury? Her definition of luxury. And she told me there were three things. She said one was heritage. You had to have heritage. She said you cannot create heritage overnight. Maybe you can buy it, you buy a name, but you have to have that legacy connotes luxury, just a whole history of good design, of creating a product. Second, she said, was craftsmanship. She said good craftsmanship, even in an era of conveyor belt design. In fact, because of conveyor belt design, craftsmanship is going to be more sought after, have a higher premium. And the third element was design. So if you combine these three things, heritage, craftsmanship, and design, you're going to get luxury. Now, luxury is a pejorative term, but let's not think of it pejoratively. Let's think of it as an option, an opportunity for craftspeople to raise their incomes, to get the real price for the goods that they make. And that's why I think craftspeople in India have the two of them, the first two in abundance, which is heritage and craftsmanship. But we need to get a more real-time model of design, a real dialogue of design going from multiple design sources. So I think we should do that. If we can again help from the Mahindra Group, one of the companies we acquired some years ago is an Italian company called Pininfarina, which used to design all the Ferraris. So it is essentially and still is an automotive design firm. But if you know of them, they are now a complete 360-degree design firm. They design buildings, they design even pens, they design stationery, they design boats, they design all kinds of things. So they were very keen to create a Pininfarina Academy, which would allow people to get the sensibility of design everywhere. And maybe we can create some, let's think, Madhvi, maybe for next year, we can try and get them to collaborate with some of your craftspeople and in a smaller way, relaunch the whole GoldenEye objective, which is to get a dialogue which is global and international in terms of design. And Sanat Kada can be the wonderful laboratory for this.
Yeah, I think that's great, because I think the main gap was between implementing someone's design and otherwise being a designer in yourself. So I think that what you're talking about will bridge that gap. That's something that will bridge that gap. I was just going to just add at this point a question is what do you think we do differently at Mahindra Sanat Kada Lucknow Festival to the other festivals? Because I know you have, you support culture so much in all the festivals that you do.
I would, in order to answer that question, I would zero in on one word, and that is authenticity. You've got heritage for sure. That's certainly your unique selling proposition. Lucknow is is I mean, a gold mine in terms of its history, its heritage, its reputation for culture, for tamiz, for craftsmanship, for design. All of that exists. So you clearly have a USP that is the Lucknow Sanat Kada Festival. But I think what really makes it unique is the authenticity of the festival. And that comes down to, frankly, the two of you that I'm talking about here. Why did we fund this? It was not created by some corporate trying to create a festival for its own needs, which is again why this makes it very special. This was done out of passion, out of love for a city. And Radhika obviously has that passion, and we had never met, but she told Vasu to reach out to me. And again, serendipity worked, or karma, as we would probably say in India. It was meant to happen, and the timing was right. I remembered my mother's passions and her authenticity and her love for that city and how it shaped her. And of course, Madhavi, coming back to you, what you feel for the city and the effort and commitment you put into this is what Vasu first talked to me about, and Radhika conveyed about how much selflessness had gone into it. So if you really ask me, that is what sets the festival apart. It's you people.
Thank you, Rick. All Lucknow Walas, that's the best compliment you can give this
Absolutely.
partnership.
And
Absolutely.
it's become a part of the city's calendar, which is what's really been the most exciting thing for us. But I do feel that you obviously have some passion for the arts, because I mean, with the Sanat Kada Festival, we do a lot of performances which showcase regional arts. But I see the fantastic blues festival. The theater festival has become really a kind of a landmark in terms of it sort of sets standards, and that has its own prestige. Was this a sort of individual personal love for the arts, a wider philosophy?
Well, I can't deny that obviously it has something to do with my own journey, if you will. But I'm very careful when our company sponsors something that there must be a raison d'etre for them to do this. So as far as I'm concerned, my undergraduate degree is in filmmaking, is in the visual arts. So I was a rebel, I guess. I was just trying to do something which was completely different from the universe people expected me to inhabit. You grow up in India and say, "Ha, beta, jeeps bechne wala hai, tractor bechega," that kind of thing. And I was a non-conformist. I guess I inherited that from my mother. And I was suffocated by that. But I also happened to be creative, was in my school days as well. So I was really experimenting with my own mind and what the possibilities were, which is why when I discovered the liberal arts in America, I jumped in to the deep end right away. It was fantastic for me to have that ability to explore. So I studied photography, art, and of course made a film. Meera Nair was a junior to me, in fact, in the same program. She always jokes with me that I sold out to the establishment. I should have remained a filmmaker. But that's my personal journey. But where does it link with corporate objectives? Well, one is we give back, as I said, because the idea is that we must support the communities in which we work, as I said. So on one level, we are merely deploying our RISE credo, because if we are giving back to communities, you have to recognize how much culture and art is a part of communities and keeping them vibrant. So that's one objective. Second objective, and where it benefits the company, is because right from the time I started working, obviously I did business school afterwards to sort of atone for my sins of filmmaking undergraduate and to get credibility back in work. But I always used to I always used to bring in the right-brained angle even into our business school discussions. my nickname in business school was MGM, which was known as Metro Goldwyn Mahindra, because people knew I was a filmmaker as an undergraduate. And I would always in the discussions try and bring in a more holistic view of life, of society, of people. So I think the arts, supporting the arts, brings in both hemispheres of the brain into decision making. And an author named Daniel Pink some time ago wrote a book called A Whole New Mind, which was seminal. And he predicted that companies are going to look more in the future for designers and for artists, because they know how to deal with uncertainty, with ambiguity. They know how to do human-centric business. And he was right, because today we are all as a business trying to become purpose-driven. That's now become a phrase all around the world. And even the World Economic Forum is talking about businesses that focus on the sustainable development goals and on society as a whole, and putting people first. You've got human-centric design, human-centric engineering. So guess which kind of people are more attuned to delivering products and services for that new world, for the new customers who demand that kind of accountability of companies. It's artists, it's designers, people, and hopefully people who bring an amalgam of both. So I think when you look at it that way, I think our portfolio of sponsorships, of promotion of artistic properties is very directly linked to improving the thinking capability of all the executives in our company. And that's the selfish goal behind all of that.
Well, I think that, I mean, as you were speaking, I'm sort of reminded about the fact that so many of those skills are there with our crafts people and our crafts community. They have lived with uncertainty. They have lived with good design. It is a human-centric way. And something else that you've spoken about, which I always found very interesting, which is the idea of happiness and design. And I think you mentioned that somewhere once. And you know, that's the incredible thing about the crafts, because there is utility. I mean, Rajasthan, you have an Idani, which a woman will put on her head, on which she carries a vessel. And but the work gone into that object of utility is incredible. And you know, there are examples like that.
Yeah, Radhika, you know, the favorite one for me from Lucknow is the Chandi ka Vark, because you know, they kuto it for hours and then we eat it on our mithai. And it's so magical the way it comes out. I mean, it's really...
Which is not to romanticize some of the tedious labor. I mean, I'm not saying that there is anything romantic about walking for hours for a woman to get water. But the idea that if you have to do something, the objects that you're creating also have a certain aesthetics and beauty. And I think that's something you've actually spoken about so often. Going back to the idea of design, which I find interesting. So I think we just have to have you come to Lucknow.
Now that we've managed this, and everyone from Lucknow who's watching this is going to, you know, really make me take this promise out of you that, I mean, this is Barwa Bar, but maybe 13 is lucky for us. Next year's festival is lucky for the world and for us that you do finally visit.
We haven't even spoken about the food that will be there for you. So
both you and Anuradha, really.
We will make that promise, and if I can twist the arms of my daughters who live in New York and who are both creative, maybe I can drag them along with me too, and we'll turn up en famille, as they say next year.
Wow. That'd be beautiful. And thank you so much for being here and for being our partners. And really, it's because of you that we can do it. And thanks, Radhika.
Thank you. No, this is
thank you, both of you. Thank you both for everything you do. As I said, you are the real authenticity behind the festival, and I'm grateful to you for what you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Mahindra, Madhvi, and Radhika Baudia for this very interesting conversation. The basic nature of our business deals with craft, and your conversation gave us many useful insights on how to streamline and smoothen the entire concept of craft and craftsmanship and marketing of the finished product. As we move towards the end of the evening, we request our viewers to stay online and to watch a short film that we have created with 3 artisans from our local community. We have with us a bone carver, Mr. Jalaluddin, Shabnam, who is a weaver from Barabanki, and we have Mahesh ji and Sunita, who are makers of miniature murtis from the Khajwa locality of Lucknow. It has been a great challenge for all of us, for us as an organization, because this is the first time that we have gone online, but more so for our craftspersons, because they too are new to digitization, and this has also been compounded by the problems that they have faced in this past 1 year.
मेरा नाम मोहम्मद अरशद है। बोन कार्विंग का काम हम लोग अपने फादर से सीखा है, वही हम कर रहे हैं। कोविड में काम बहुत कम हो गया, आर्थिक स्थिति बहुत ज़्यादा इफेक्ट पड़ा है। मतलब ये है जिसकी जो सेविंग होती है वो ख़त्म हो चुकी है। 2020 में सनत कदा में जो एग्जीबिशंस लगी थी उसमें हमने पार्टिसिपेट किया था, बहुत अच्छा रिस्पांस हुआ था। तो कोविड में यह है कि अब सनत कदा का जो 2021 में फेस्टिवल होने जा रहा है वो ऑनलाइन होने जा रहा है। थैंक्स फॉर सनत कदा, जिन्होंने ये सोचा कि ऑनलाइन कारीगरों को लाते हैं, उनके प्रोडक्ट की सेल करते हैं। नथिंग से तो ये सही है कि कुछ तो हो, तो उसके लिए सनत कदा बहुत मेहनत कर रहा है। और मुझे लगता है कि एक स्पेस बना है ऑनलाइन का ऑफलाइन के अकॉर्डिंग, तो शायद अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स हो भी सकता है कि बहुत अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स हो जाए।
मेरा नाम महेश कुमार मूर्तिकार है। मैं ये मिट्टी से बने खिलौने बनाता हूँ और मैं पिछले 32 सालों से ये काम कर रहा हूँ। कोविड-19 आया तो इससे तो बहुत फर्क पड़ा। ये हम लोग का काम जो टूरिस्ट पे निर्भर है। जब टूरिस्ट नहीं आता इधर से उधर तो हम लोग का सामान नहीं बिकता है। कभी कभी कोरियर में ये होता है, कभी कभी सामान सही से पहुँच जाता है और कहीं कहीं पर टूट भी जाता है, तो फिर हमें नुकसान होता है उससे। सनत कदा ने, माधवी मैडम ने सोचा है, तो जो भी सोचती हैं तो अच्छा ही सोचा होगा, क्योंकि तभी आगे जो ऑफलाइन में था कि लखनऊ वाले ही आते थे, अब ऑनलाइन में सभी लोग देखेंगे। सनत कदा की वजह से हमें भी बहुत यहाँ पे पहचान मिल रही है। मैं सनत कदा का बहुत आभारी हूँ, जिन्होंने सबकी मदद की, हमारी भी मदद की पिछले 12-13 सालों से, और आगे मदद करते रहेंगे।
मेरा नाम शबनम है और मैं जैतपुर जिला बाराबंकी की रहने वाली हूँ। मेरा काम 2 है, खादी है, स्पोर्ट लाइन है। कोरोना की महामारी में हमारे काम पे बहुत बड़ा फर्क पड़ा हुआ है। ऑनलाइन जाने के लिए मुझे मोबाइल चलाना नहीं आता था और किस तरह से ऑनलाइन बिकता है ये मुझे नहीं पता था, लेकिन मैंने बच्चों से सीखा है कि किस तरह ऑनलाइन जाता है इंसान और किस तरह बिकता है माल। अभी इस फेस्टिवल में किस हिसाब से बिकेगा, मुझे खुशी हो रही है कि जहाँ तक कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा बिके। सनत कदा ऑनलाइन फेस्टिवल जो करने जा रहा है उसमें ये उम्मीद है कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा बिकने का चांस है। मतलब कि ऑनलाइन देखते हैं तो लोग फ़ोटो के ज़रिए ले रहे हैं सामान, और ऐसे ऑफलाइन था तो लोग हाथों से छू के फील करके लोग सामान को खरीदते थे। एक बात बताऊँ सनत कदा की, मैं बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ जो उन्होंने ऑनलाइन सामान बेचने का मुझे मौका दिया।
We thank our viewers for being with us, and before we sign off, this is a small reminder for you to watch a Kathak performance by Shinjini Kulkarni. She is the granddaughter of Pandit Birju Maharaj, and her performance can be watched on the Mahindra Sanat Kada YouTube channel at 8 o'clock. Also, we request you to join us for the Home Cooked Food Festival at Nemat Khana. This is from 12 noon to 10 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, 6th and 7th of February.